Hello! So, what's the deal? The deal is that I have a lot of stuff, a lot of fabrics, both straight up fabric pieces and clothing. Clothing that I got because it was on a nice price and that I thought was interesting, whether it's clothing that I was given by someone that wasn't using it anymore, and after a bit it became a lot. A big part of what I have done is to sometimes being very honest and like, okay, I'm never gonna use it. I'm not really that interested in this fabric or this material, so keep away. It's all fun. But then you have those pieces that you go, I could try and do something with this. My experience with sewing it's very limited, and most of the time I am fully improvising. But anyway, I just wanted to say this as a preface because I do wanted to go a little bit further in my sewing experience and journey. So I have a few projects that I want to work on, and one of those it's a little bit new in the sense that I have tried to do something similar before and it kind of worked, but this time I wanted to do something a bit more thought out. So the first time I found something like that, a very big shirt, and I thought, I saw that people sometimes kind of cut it and make a two-piece, and that's what I did. It was a very simple type of fabric. It was kind of old, nothing fancy, nothing particular, but it was my first try it out. Now my second attempt was different. That one was a shirt, and then became a top and a skirt. In this case was a skirt that was way longer and had a bit of extra fabric. Now I think this skirt is very nice. I think it's I like the form, the buttons, everything is nice. I just had to cut down. There was nothing else to do in the top. And with the extra fabric, I tried to do a sort of top that I haven't finished because I am kind of on a limbo. I don't know where to go with this. So it should be basically like this, like a bustier, I think. But the thing is that I don't actually have enough fabric for these pieces. Like I just have this left. So it's kind of on a weird point in which I don't know. Also, I'm not particularly fond of these colors, so it's not that I'm in a rush to finish it and wear it because I really wouldn't. But I do think it was a nice experience in order to kind of see a type of pattern that I've never done before. In particular, this bustier is made out of 4 pieces in total for each side. So you have this front line, side line, and you have 2 in the back. Now the project that I am working on at the moment, it's something that I started a few days ago, but I did not film everything and then I did not do this introduction because I wasn't sure how it's going to go. There's always the possibility of it not going well. So I did not want to film too much, but I did film some parts of it, mainly me starting from the skirt that is similar to this one, how it all began. I just found a skirt that was kind of very long and kind of find my feet, cutting the excess and using the excess for an upper part, a different type of an upper part.
But first, let's deal with the skirt. It was a few sizes bigger, so I needed to fit it to my body odi. The skirt has 2 pockets on the side, so I chose to do the fitting on the front and back lines. Then I work on the length. I am not too tall, so too long is not really my fit and too short would be uncomfortable. Finally, I like to move a bit before going ahead with the sewing just to be sure that there is capability of movement without stretching too much the fabric. I decided to know the measurements and more or less how I was dealing with this project for research purposes, I guess. And then we go with Paulina. Dealing with the top part took way longer because I was very uncertain. However, for your sake, I just put the parts through which it looks like I know what I'm doing. I used a very, very basic pattern of a vest just to see if I had enough fabric to work with. And Jazz wanted to visit.
Okay, so here's the skirt, which we already saw. This is the back, this is the front, and the main sewing was already done, also on the lower part. I do need to just cut the excess, which is usually the last thing I do, because I'm always afraid of cutting a bit too much and then I need some extra. But in this case, I have put it on, put it off, put it on, put it on a lot of times. So I am certain that I can do some cutting. Of course, a nice amount is always going to remain, because not only for the seam, but for practical reasons, I always like to leave a little bit of fabric behind. Now the upper part, I also changed the clips. This was the clips that it came with. However, these ones were a little bit farther away. No, a little bit closer, wait. Yes, they were closer, I understand myself. So I just had to move them. It's a very easy type of clip. It's like a pin, basically. Now it also has a button, and I need to do the hole in here. I need to sew it. So most of the things I need to do are just things like cutting and closing seams by hand. So that's something that I usually do at night. Now the real moment here is the upper part. Now I wasn't sure how to go with this, because at first I did thought about doing the top kind of like the other one. However, I soon realized that it wasn't enough fabric, and maybe I could kind of step it up. So I went with the idea of a sort of blazer thing. But lucky for me, it was enough for the front part. Not very long, but that's matter. I'm not that long. And also for some extra details, which they kind of started to add up as long as I went. So you saw me doing the bottom basically, and trying to do something by using the most amount of fabric and trying not to waste anything, but at the same time making it fit me actually. And this is kind of the closer product. This is full of pins. You can electrocute me in this, absolutely. So if I put it on, first of all, it fits, which is already great. I thought about going a little bit more close in the back. However, I decided that actually, if I do a good old extra piece in here, then I can kind of use this to fit it to me perfectly, which allows me to always have a bit more of room here, so I don't have to stretch it too much. This also because this fabric is not particularly stretchy, so yeah, I don't want to risk it. So I thought, you know what, let's play it safe. I'm sorry, black over black, I know it's not the best to showcase something, but I mean, I think you can see kind of the idea behind it, as I added this kind of extra piece over, because I thought, kind of layer it up, adding a little bit depending on the fabric that I had left, and also depending on the form that this was taking. Now, there's one thing that I need to kind of decide, which is this length. There is a little bit more fabric in here. There's like 2 fingers, sort of like this, of extra fabric, so I could go down a little bit lower. However, I don't particularly mind this length, but this kind of also depends on, well, what my vibe is. So this wasn't going to be part of it, but after a while I went into my whole amount of fabric stuff, and luckily I found enough extra black material to do an inside part of the jacket. This is something that I've never done before. Usually I just do the outside and usually also the front, so you cannot see anything. But in this case, I wanted to do it right. So what I have basically done is that besides the structure that you see on the outside with the pieces of fabric that were part of the skirt, plus this piece of fabric in the back, I added other pieces of fabric inside. And it is interesting, I've never done this before. It was kind of weird at first, because I did wanted to, and I did sew some of these already with the machine, but other parts I felt very insecure, because I was like, wait, how do you flip it? How do you how do you do all of this? So basically last night I just took some pieces that I found and I fitted as best that I could with a lot of pins, as you can see. What I need to do now is basically sew this whole thing, but I need to do some of this by machine, not only because it's long, but because it requires a nice stitch, a stitch that I'm not able to do by hand. I mean, I could, but I don't feel secure enough. I feel that if I move it too much, it's going to rip. So I do like to have some of this done by the machine, and then the rest is going to do made by hand, also because I don't know any better. Very simply put, things like the line here in the low part, this extra piece here because I didn't have enough big piece of fabric, so I had to put various pieces together. Um, some of the length in here of the color. These are things that I know and I feel way more secure doing by the machine. And the rest, we'll see. There's also the whole aspect of the buttons. So in the skirt, there are these buttons, which are, but it's very basically, it's a button that is covered up in the fabric. But these are very particular types of buttons. And I don't have this, but I have buttons that have kind of this measure. So what I'm trying to do, what I will try to do later, is try to use some buttons that I have, cover them with some of the pieces of fabric that I have left, and try to see if I can make a button like this so I can put it on the jacket, because I think it would look very nice. There is actually an extra thing that I would like to do, but I'm not going to say anything. No, am I going to actually film me doing it? Because if it fails, then I can just delete this. But I mean, it again, this is also very much trying to do things right and trying to, step up a little bit my sewing game. So yeah, let's go.
It is quite fun to look back at this and remember that I was very insecure. I was afraid of pulling the fabric too much, of not removing the pins in time, or forgetting them so the needle might break. It happened once and it almost hit my eye. But dare I say that sewing is a very important skill and I actually enjoy it. I also highly recommend it because by machine is useful because, well, let's be honest, it takes way shorter amounts of time to do something. But hand sewing is also incredibly useful. I am not a professional at all. Please look for people that know way more things than I do. But knowing how to sew allows me to fix things that I already have, as well as making the pieces that I have a little bit more important and unique, given that I put a time and effort to them.
Hello. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a two-piece. Here it is. I am actually kind of surprised, not only because I think it took me about a week of a couple of hours a day, because I can't like physically spend way too much time on one single thing at a time. But I mean, for something that I've never done before, especially with this level of thought out process, I mean, okay, let's start from the bottom. We have the skirt. Now, for me, it was kind of very important to retain as much as the original form of the skirt because I really liked it. So, when also finishing everything, cutting the extra excess, then I had to thought about closing it well, because this is something that I have made a continuous mistake in the past, which is I cut and then I turn, but it doesn't allow me to do the double turn, so it always remains open, and the issue is that sometimes fabric loses a bit of its strength and it makes a mess. In this case, however, I was able to calm down and do it properly. So it is very nice. It doesn't mean that it is bulky, it just means that it is closed well.
both in the front and in the back. In the back I had a bit of an issue because there was this kind of fake bucket thing that made a really weird curve, but I was able to, I couldn't just remove it because I just couldn't, it wouldn't fit with the fabric and everything would have been way messier. But I decided to kind of just close them very, very well and kind of put them together in order to just, you know, fix the whole thing. So that's the skirt. I'm gonna put it on. Drum roll. Ta-da! I mean, honestly, come on. Come on. And it still has the pockets because that's the thing, basically, because it has pockets. I couldn't do the fixing on the sides. It would have been way messier, even harder for me to do because I've never done it before. So this was way easier and I am happy. Come on. Now, let's bring the upper part, which, so I had what everyone saw, the kind of blazer vest thing, and I can still do that. However, I made sleeves. Nobody told me how hard it is to put on the sleeves, so fake people. But anyway, I made it. It's not perfect, but it's so exciting to do something new. I prepared a white shirt because I think it might be easier for you to see. Wait. I'm excited. Oh my god. Da-da-da. Yay! It's like a jacket. I mean, let's be honest. Is it perfect? No, of course it isn't. I've never done this before. There's so many details, but it is functional. Like, I put it on, I'm wearing it, and it doesn't break when I wear it. And if you see on the inside, I closed all the seams, some of these by hand, which took me a little bit, but I did it, so it's all, I mean, it's functional. So I'm really happy actually with the whole thing because, again, being the first time that I kind of go full force with something like this, you know, it's not perfect again, but I am very happy. And now there's a few extra details that I wanted to. Not only did I do the sleeves, but I used a piece of the extra fabric that I had to do this part, and also I did the buttons that are similar to the ones in the skirt. I also forgot to say that I did this. It's nothing, it was just a very tiny piece, you cannot even see it. Maybe if I put it on my big ass forehead you can see it. Wait. There you go. This was a look in the 2000s, by the way. So, yay! I'm actually very, very happy about what I have accomplished. I know it is not perfect. Again, I am aware there are a lot of details that if you were to look at this, you know, front and center, you would notice. But I'm actually very happy to have kind of step it up, try to do not only the outside part but also the inner part, to try something new and also just make something that I actually wear, because this is something that I think some of us might sometimes do, especially if we don't have experience or we don't have someone to kind of help us and guide us through the whole aspect of creating stuff. I have had a lot of clothing and I have tried also with pieces of fabric to do things, and there have been a lot of times in which I ruined what I had and I didn't think through. Perhaps I saw some fast video on the internet that didn't really explain it. I didn't really analyze what I was doing and what I wanted to do, what my actual end goal was. It was more like, oh, it looks cool, let's try it. And by doing that, I do feel kind of guilty because there was a lot of things that I could have used way better, and there are some things that sadly I couldn't wear anymore and they became just pieces of fabric. In this particular case, I am happy to have found kind of a middle ground, in the sense that it was an old piece of clothing that I was able to not only fit to myself, but also I was able to create something new. If I was to go ahead and do something from scratch, I know these helped me quite a bit. In fact, I tried to note some of the things and try to understand a little bit better how you can do it, how can you measure it on yourself, and at the same time what works better for me. Overall, I do thought it was a very nice experience, very fun, very interesting, and it also helps me quite a lot because I need to do creative stuff. That's something that if I don't do it for a long time, it is easier for me to go into dark side of my mind. So this really, really helps me to do something physical, something interesting that keeps my head going, which it's really, really fun. That I would have been